The first thing everyone noticed was the silence. It wasn't the usual kind, the respectful quiet of a lecture hall or the dull hum of a research station. This silence had weight. It pressed down on the polished alloy floors and the towering crystalline pillars of the Interstellar Academy like a warning. Every species present felt it. Then they noticed her. She limped, one uneven step after another, her body swaying slightly with each motion. Her exoskeletal plating, once a shimmering iridescent blue, was cracked, dulled, and scorched in places. A faint trail of violet blood dotted the floor behind her. No one moved to help, because they knew who she was. Cadet Viral, that's, of the Ethri Dominion. A warrior species. Ruthless. Proud. Feared across half the spiral arm. And right now, she looked broken. The doors to Hall Sigma slid open with a low hiss, revealing a chamber already filled with cadets from a dozen civilizations. Conversations died instantly as Viral entered. Eyes followed her, some with curiosity, some with satisfaction, some with quiet, cold judgment. She ignored them all. Each step was deliberate, painful, but controlled. She would not show weakness. Not here. Not in front of them. At the far end of the hall stood the evaluation dais, where the final combat trials had been conducted, where reputations were forged or destroyed, where hers had been shattered. She reached the center of the hall and stopped. For a moment, her legs trembled. Just for a moment. Then, Cadet, that's. The voice echoed from above, amplified and emotionless. Instructor Colven, a towering, multi-limbed being whose species had served as adjudicators for centuries, leaned forward from the observation platform. You have failed your final assessment. A ripple passed through the hall. Viral did not respond. Your performance, Colven continued, was inadequate. A murmur spread among the cadets. Everyone had seen the match. Everyone had expected Viral to dominate. Instead, she had been dismantled, outmaneuvered, broken. You may yet retain provisional status, Colven said, if you accept reassignment to a non-combat role. The words struck harder than any blow she had taken in the arena. Non-combat. For an Ethri, that was worse than exile. Viral's claws curled slightly. I decline, she said. Her voice was steady. Too steady. Another murmur. Declining, Colven replied, will result in immediate dismissal from the academy. I am aware. Silence again. Heavy. Expectant. Then, a voice cut through it. Hold on. Every head turned. At the back of the hall, leaning casually against a support column, stood a human. He hadn't been paying attention earlier, or at least, that's what most had assumed. He'd been half-leaning, half-slouching, arms crossed, eyes half-lidded as if bored. Now, he stood upright, fully alert. Something doesn't add up, he said. A ripple of confusion spread. The human stepped forward. Slow. Unhurried. Dangerous. Viral's gaze flicked toward him for the first time. She recognized him. Cadet Elias Mercer. Human. Average build. No visible enhancements. No notable rank. And yet, there was something about him. Something off. Instructor Colven's voice sharpened. Cadet Mercer. This proceeding does not concern you. Yeah, Elias said. That's the problem. A few cadets shifted uneasily. Humans were unpredictable. Not the strongest. Not the fastest. But they had a reputation. For interfering. For surviving things they shouldn't. For refusing to stay in their place. Elias stopped a few meters from Viral. He glanced at her injuries. At the way she stood, barely. Then back up at the instructor. She didn't lose, he said. The hall erupted. What? Did he just? That's absurd. Colvin's limbs twitched in irritation. The results are recorded, the instructor said. Cadet, that was defeated within regulation parameters. Yeah, Elias replied, after she'd already been compromised. The room went quiet again. Colvin leaned forward. Explain. Elias tilted his head slightly. The opponent she faced, Cadet RHYSS Bar, used a phase disruptor during the match. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the crowd. That is a serious accusation, Colvin said. It's also true. All eyes turned to another figure standing near the side of the hall.
Tall, lean,
armored in sleek black plating. RHYSS Bar. He didn't move. Didn't react. Didn't even blink. Scan logs were clean, Colvin said. Of course they were, Elias replied. That's what a phase disruptor does. It desyncs biofeedback readings for a fraction of a second. Enough to mask interference. A murmur spread again. Uncertain now. Suspicious. Viral's gaze narrowed slightly. She hadn't said anything about that. Hadn't even been sure. But she had felt it. A moment in the fight. A flicker. A loss of control that didn't make sense. Colvin turned to RHYSS. Cadet Various. Do you deny this claim? RHYSS finally spoke. I do.
Calm. Cold. Perfect.
Elias smiled faintly. Yeah, he said. You would. The tension in the room thickened. Colvin's voice dropped. Cadet Mercer. Accusations without proof are grounds for disciplinary action. Elias nodded. Good thing I've got proof. That changed everything. A flicker of real interest passed through the hall. Present it, Colvin demanded. Elias reached up and tapped the side of his neck. A small holographic display flickered to life in the center of the room. Data streams. Combat footage. Frame by frame.
Slowed.
Enhanced. The fight replayed. Viral, fast, precise, dominant in the early moments. RHYSS. Defensive, calculating.
Then,
a single frame. Barely perceptible. A distortion around RHYSS's arm. A flicker. Elias froze the image. Right there. The hall leaned in. Run a phase variance analysis, Elias said. Colvin hesitated, then signaled. The system complied. A moment later, a red spike appeared in the data. Small, but undeniable. Gasps spread through the room. Colvin's limbs stiffened. Cadet Var. RHYSS didn't respond. Didn't need to. The evidence was clear. Violation of combat protocol, Colvin said slowly. Disqualification is... The instructor stopped. Because RHYSS was smiling. You're missing the point, RHYSS said. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. This was never about the match. Something in his tone made several cadets step back. Colvin's voice hardened. Explain yourself. RHYSS's gaze swept the room. Then settled on Viral. The Dominion is weakening, he said. Your kind is losing its edge. Viral's claws tightened. And I was sent, RHYSS continued, to prove it. A ripple of shock. That's treason, someone whispered. RHYSS shrugged. Call it what you want. His gaze shifted. To Elias. And you, he said softly. You should have stayed out of this. Elias didn't move. Yeah, he said. Probably. Then he stepped forward. Just one step. But it changed everything. Because suddenly, the room felt smaller. Tighter. Like the air itself had been pulled inward. You cheated, Elias said. You tried to ruin her career. And now you're talking about proving a point. RHYSS's smile faded slightly. You don't understand what you're interfering with. Maybe not, Elias said. But I understand this. He rolled his shoulders once. Slowly. You don't get to walk away from this. The tension snapped. RHYSS moved first.
Fast.
Faster than anyone expected. A blur of black armor and lethal precision. He aimed straight for Elias. A killing strike. The hall erupted, but Elias didn't dodge. Didn't flinch. He stepped into the attack. And stopped it. One hand. That was all it took. Gasps exploded across the room. RHYSS's strike, capable of shattering reinforced plating, was caught mid-motion. Like it was nothing. Elias tilted his head slightly. Yeah, he said. That's about what I expected. RHYSS's eyes widened, just for a fraction of a second. Then Elias moved. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't dramatic. It was efficient. Precise. Terrifying. He twisted, redirected, and slammed RHYSS into the ground with a force that cracked the floor beneath them. The entire hall shook. Silence followed. Absolute. RHYSS tried to move. He couldn't. Elias stood over him.
Calm.
Unbothered. You're done, he said. Security units rushed in. Too late. It was already over. Colvin's voice echoed, tight with something that might have been disbelief. Cadet Var is to be detained immediately. RHYSS was dragged away, still silent, still staring at Elias. Then the hall turned, all of it, toward the human. Elias exhaled slowly, then glanced back at Viral. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, you didn't have to do that, she said. Her voice was quieter now, less rigid. Elias shrugged. Yeah, he said. I did. She studied him.
Carefully.
You knew, she said. Had a feeling, he replied. You risked your standing. Wouldn't be the first time. A pause. Then, why? It was a simple question, but it carried weight. Elias considered it, then smiled faintly. Because it was wrong. That was it. No grand speech. No elaborate reasoning. Just wrong. Vera looked at him for a long moment. Then something shifted. Not in the room. In her. The tension she'd been holding since the fight, since the accusation, since everything loosened. Just slightly. Colvin's voice broke the silence. Cadet, that's... Viral straightened. Your evaluation will be reinstated, the instructor said. A new trial will be scheduled. A murmur of approval spread. Additionally, Colvin added, the Academy acknowledges the intervention of Cadet Mercer. A pause. Though unconventional, it was justified. That got a reaction. Humans rarely received that kind of acknowledgement. Elias just scratched the back of his neck. Yeah, well, he muttered. The crowd began to disperse. But not entirely, because now they were watching him, not with curiosity, not with dismissal, with respect, and something else, caution. Viral took a step forward, less unsteady now. Mercer, she said. He looked at her. You stepped in for me, she said. That creates a debt. Elias grimaced slightly. Yeah, about that. I will repay it, she said firmly. He sighed. Or, he said, you could just not get into situations where people have to step in. A faint flicker of something, almost amusement, passed through her expression. That is unlikely. Yeah, he said. Figured. Another pause. Then, train with me, she said. Elias blinked. What? You exposed a weakness I did not see, Viral said. That is unacceptable. He raised an eyebrow. You're asking me to train you? I am. Elias looked around. At the hall. At the watching eyes. Then back at her. You sure about that? He asked. Yes. He studied her for a moment. Then, all right, he said. But I'm not going easy on you. I would not accept it if you did. That earned a small smile. Good. The two of them stood there for a moment longer. Then turned. and walked out of the hall together. Ending, weeks later, the academy gathered again. Another trial, another evaluation. But this time, the atmosphere was different. Because now everyone knew
About the human.
about what he could do, and about the one he had chosen to stand beside. Viral stepped into the arena. No limp, no hesitation, no doubt. Across from her stood a new opponent.
Stronger. Faster. Prepared.
The signal sounded.
The fight began.
And this time, there were no hidden tricks. No interference. No lies. Only skill. Only will. Only truth. It ended in under 2 minutes. Viral stood victorious. The arena erupted. Not just in applause, but in recognition. Because they had all seen it. The difference. The growth. The strength. And as she stood there, she didn't look at the crowd. She looked at one person, standing quietly at the edge of the arena, arms crossed, half smiling. Elias nodded once. That was all, but it was enough. Because in that moment, the entire academy understood something new. Humans weren't the strongest. They weren't the fastest. They weren't even the most advanced. But when they chose to stand, they changed everything. And sometimes all it took was one human stepping forward.